plan for the year 2030, you will see that the issues of water and sanitation are at the very top of our priorities. We have no bigger pressing needs than the topics that you are going to be discussing in this workshop over the next couple of days. The reality of the situation in our city is that we face a crisis in the supply of raw water. We face a crisis in the delivery of that water to residents and industry. We face a major, almost existential crisis when it comes to the processing of sewage in our city. And consequent on that, we face a major health crisis given the state of our sewage plants. If we look at all the basic facts, we have major shortages of raw water. At present, 46% of the water which is purified is non-revenue water in our city. That's the current statistic. We cannot account for it. If you look at our 8 sewage plants situated right across the city, they are running at less than 20% capacity today. If you go to Umguza Dam in the north of the city, you will be disgusted. It is literally green with thick sediment, because at present we are pumping raw sewage into that dam and into the Umguza river system. Right across our city, councillors and people, our engineers, know that as councillors, almost on an hourly basis, if not a daily basis, and certainly on a weekly basis, we have reports from residents right across our city of sewage breaches, of sewage seeping into residential homes, causing a major threat to the people affected by that. And so from every possible perspective, if we are being honest with ourselves, a workshop like this is in fact one of the most important the city can involve itself in. And I stress that we face an existential threat that challenges the future of this very city. The answer to this threat, of course, is multifaceted. There's no single silver bullet, and you certainly won't get that from me, a lawyer who knows precious little about water engineering and sanitation, but I'm a practical person and I can understand the practical solutions that are required. And I want to just touch on a few of those in my opening remarks this morning, in the hope that they might challenge us and might help guide your conversations over the next couple of days. The first is the obvious issue that you can't have water recycling unless you have water to deliver into the city. One of the reasons I'm told why our sewage systems are breaking is because we are not putting sufficient quantities of water through the system. Our sewage pipes are designed to be flushed by great quantities of water. And because we are on water shedding programs and most residents only get water every 90 hours, the consequence of that is that we're not flushing the systems. Systems are getting clogged and it results in these blockages. So raw water is critical. And the reality of our city is that we have raw water shortages. This year, despite the wonderful rains that we've had, despite the fact that we've had over 700 millimeters of rain this season, which is above our normal average, the harsh reality, if you look at the Zimbabwe dam statistics, is that our dams are way below the national average of 91%. We have one of our 6 dams spilling in Chabez, but the vast majority of our dams are still, at the end of this season, below 50% capacity. Councillors and the town clerk and the chamber secretary know what I'm about to say because I sound like a stuck record. But I need to say it again. We need to analyze why that situation is. Why is it that we have a dam like in Chabez, which is situated to the south of the city, which is 100% full, and yet another dam, Mzungwane, whose catchment area is within 10 kilometers of the catchment area of Chabez Dam, is sitting at 36%. Scientists here, engineers, why is that in the same rainfall region that we have such a disparity in inflows? And those of you who are aware of our dam system know that the Chabez rises in the Motobo Hills where there is no gold mining, and that is why it's 100% full and still spilling as I speak today. And yet Mzungwane, which, as I stress again, has a catchment area less than 10 kilometers from the Chabez catchment area, is sitting at 36%. The reason is the Mzungwane catchment areas is riddled with illegal gold mining. Every single tributary is dug up. And the beautiful rain that we've received simply has not got into our river systems and has not got to the dam. And that existential threat, if not addressed, renders the rest of this conference totally academic. Because if that situation continues, if that trajectory of gold mining continues, our dams will not get the inflows that they need. And it is our number one issue. If we don't get water in the system, you won't get the ability to recycle water. It's as basic as that. And I shudder to think about the situation which will prevail if we have a below average rainy season. What will happen then? So that is number one. We have to stop the illegal gold mining. We have water chemists here today, ma'am. We have the same illegal gold mining putting mercury and other chemicals, harmful chemicals, in our catchment areas. And so aside from the water shortage, we face an existential threat from the chemicals being put into our river systems. And it simply has to stop. Government has said that river bank mining is illegal. And yet we see nothing, no measures being taken to stop that. So that's number one. Number two is the need to upgrade our existing water pumping facilities. We have members of NUST here today and government representatives, and those of us in government and in the City Council know that 2 years ago the Minister of Water established a water technical committee. And that water technical committee did outstanding work with our own engineers to identify the measures that we need to take regarding our existing water reticulation system. And there are detailed proposals there, which include the realignment of the pipeline from Chabez, the rehabilitation of the pipeline from Insisa, the upgrading of the pump and purification works at Nema, the expansion of the reservoir at Tuli, the upgrading of the pipeline between Nema and Tuli. These have been in the public domain for 2 years. Government is aware of it. We have also costed that, and the costing is, in government terms, minimal. We estimate we need $14.5 million to do those upgrades. That is critical, and it can be done very quickly. We don't face a crisis this year with our raw water. In that, as I say, Nchabez is full, Caesar is 51%, and our other dams are sitting in the 30s and 40s. So this season, we have water in our dams. Our problem is that we can't convey that water to Criterion and Tuli quickly enough. Tied into that is the problem that we have with ZESA. If you study the reasons why our water supplies are disrupted in the last 2 months, you will see that generally the reason is because of power outages created by power shortages from ZESA, something beyond our control. And once again, there is a solution to this, a relatively easy solution in the form of solar energy. There are plans, there have been plans that were there before I even came into office for a solar plant near Nyankuni. In my meeting with the Minister of Water in October 2024, we spoke about the need for a solar plant at Nchabez, for example. And that is critical as well to ensuring the supply of water. But we also need to be planning for the eventuality, as is inevitable, of us not having a good rainy season. And that even if we have upgraded NEMA, we need additional sources of raw water. In 1988, this council identified Glass Block Dam. The city engineer of the time, George Mlilo, when presented with the option of Nchabez Dam and Glass Block Dam, preferred Glass Block Dam. Why? Because it's got a much bigger generation capacity. Glass Block Dam has a delivery capacity of 17 megaliters of water today, per day. I'll get there eventually. If you speak to our engineers, they will tell you that because of design problems and because of the power problem, we're only delivering 9 megaliters of water per day from Nchabez. Contrast that to Glass Block Dam, identified in 1988, which has a capacity of 70 megaliters per day. And a much easier pipeline and a design of a solar facility to pump that water. And that is why we need Glass Block Dam. I'm going to address some comments specifically to the Office of the President and the Cabinet today, and to the Fourth Estate. If one reads the Chronicle, you will see that government promotes Gwashangani Dam, which is critically important. None of us in our city leadership, in any way denigrates Gwashangani. On the contrary, we believe it is a magnificent project. But it's not a short-term solution. The short-term solution is Glass Block Dam. Why do I say this? If you look at Gwashangani, it's been built since 2012. There are two aspects to it. The one is the construction of the dam itself. But the other and more challenging engineering project is the construction of a 252-kilometer pipeline up ahead of 500 meters. And by way of contrast, if you just consider what I've just spoken to you about the power supply issues that we have just from Nema to Bulawayo, a 40-kilometer pipeline, it may give you some insight into the huge engineering challenges that will be faced in pumping water 252 kilometers from Gwashangani. That pipeline is going to cost, it is estimated, some $400 million. Last year, government allocated $2.5 million to the construction of that pipeline. Do the maths. Do the simple maths. Divide 400 million by 2.5 million and work out how many years it's going to take to construct that pipeline at that rate of investment in the pipeline. I stress my role here today is not to denigrate government, to come alongside government. We need to recognize that Gwashengani, magnificent as it is not a short-term solution to our water problems. It is a medium to long-term problem. When Glass Block Dam is constructed, it guarantees our water supplies to 2040. And what we need to all start working on together is to recognize that these two projects can work wonderfully in tandem, with Glass Block providing our short-term needs to 2040, which gives government the luxury from a financial perspective, a design perspective, to start the construction of the pipeline, to focus on the irrigation schemes that it has planned along the route from Gwashengani, and to not have the pressure of having to deliver that water to our city before 2040. Tragically, with the collapse of our water reticulation system, that is no longer happening. But the systems are there. The traditions are there. Tied into that is another facility I haven't spoken about, and that is Kami Dam. For our guests, Kami Dam is to the west of the city. It is a somewhat controversial dam. It is a dam today as I speak which is full, but there has been public angst about the use of water from Kami Dam. There are cultural issues at play, and there is also the concern that it is our one dam that gets industrial waste put into it. But the city does have plans to use Kami water, not for private use, but for industrial use. And the use of Kami Dam water must be an integral part of this workshop and in the plans going ahead. And I need to stress, for the benefit of the Fourth Estate, our plans are not to use that for personal residential use. The plans are to use them within the ambit of what is being discussed here, in the context of recycled water, water used for industrial use, but not for human use. I've spoken about the state of our sewage plants. They are all running way below capacity. We need a major investment. Perhaps the one silver lining in an otherwise very dark cloud is that having not rehabilitated them, we can now use modern technologies. We desperately need to use modern technologies in the rehabilitation of our sewage plants. One immediate thing in relation to our sewage plants is the problem at deep section. Deep section has been a festering sore ever since I've been mayor in the last 2 years. It is locked up in legal processes, and our legal department is now looking at other means of trying to lawfully short-circuit that process so that we can get deep section rehabilitated and functioning. It is critical that that happen. We are also working in public-private partnership arrangements. For example, in Hazelby 2 and 3, Hazelby 2 and 3 are being rehabilitated as I speak now. But we need to look, and I speak to the commercial sector here, and perhaps organizations like Delta might consider coming in with the city to see whether we can't have a public-private partnership arrangement regarding other sewage plants, to see through a collaborative exercise whether we can't upgrade particular other plants which can then be used by commercial enterprises. Finally, let me stress how important the presence of they is here today, and Ms. Manasseh. Our city has passed several resolutions authorizing the setting up of a standalone independent water authority. Once again, for our guests, it hasn't been an easy exercise because there's been deep-rooted concern from members of the public about the setting up of such an authority. The concern has been rooted in the fear that such an authority would become privatized and used for the benefit of a few and not the broad generality of the population. I want to reiterate in this forum today that that is not our intention. Our intention is to follow best practice, follow the advice that we've given from our Dutch partners, to set up an independent authority which remains the property of the city, which is designed in such a way that it cannot be privatized for the benefit of a few individuals. But my view is that that authority is critically important to a project like to a workshop like this. And I urge the public to understand the good intentions and the good faith of the town clerk, of our management, of the present body of councillors, of our partners in Bay, in seeking to establish this authority. And the reason is simple. One of the reasons why our water infrastructure has not been adequately maintained is because our water revenues have come into the general accounts of the city and have been dissipated, spread amongst a variety of other expenses, and we have not as a result invested in the new dams, in the new pumps, in the new pipelines, in the new technology in our sewage plants as we should have done. And it is the critical reason why we need to get this authority established so that we ring-fence those finances and ensure that the resolutions that come out of this workshop can be adequately financed in an accountable and transparent way. So with those words, I wish you all well in your deliberations, and I want to stress, from my perspective, just how important I view this workshop and its outcomes. Thank you.
Very much, Madam, for having me. The issue here is that the effluent that is discharged from industry, if it is not properly treated and meet our standards for disposal into our sewer infrastructure, it basically destroys our sewer infrastructure. Besides the destruction of our sewer infrastructure, it will also destroy the macro organisms in our sewage works, which actually assist in the natural equipment of the sewage works. So the industry has to conform to the bylaws of the city and help us in protecting our infrastructure, protect us in protecting, help us in protecting the environment, help us in protecting our macro organisms in the sewage works. Right, we have the bylaws which force industry to comply. However, for this Indaba, we are not talking about the bylaws that will be talk for another day. Today, we are encouraging each other to say, let's comply. It's not only an issue of compliance, it is an issue of protecting not the stakeholders, the people of law, but protecting the industry itself, because they want to operate under an environment which is conducive. And we are hoping that at the end of this workshop, we are going to come up with solutions together that will make the industry voluntarily deal with their effluent without having to be forced into compliance or without us having to be forced.